United Kingdom. Let's just say that. I don't think it's possible for me to have a worse opinion. Yo, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for the super van. I don't think it's possible for me to have a worse opinion. Well, I mean, India is. I mean, you know, the UK was basically taken over by India, right? So it's hard to like distinguish the two. But yeah, no, even so, I have a worse opinion of. I think you think you've been fed incorrect information about the UK. One incorrect information I've been fed about the UK, George. Um, I wanted to go to India. It also gets a lot of bad PR. India is the worst, one of the worst places on planet Earth, besides obviously the United Kingdom. Um, Look, man. I mean, I we have this thing in America where we're kind of incapable of saying that some cultures are better than others. We're all in this multicultural world where every culture is equal. But the problem with that is that like what happens is we kind of erase what makes cultures unique when we do that. Like in America, culture really just means like clothes and food and music, right? But culture involves a series of values, a series of a way that societies view the world. And I just don't jive with the way that Indian society views the world, specifically because I'm a Christian. And Indian society is complete opposite to Christianity, right? Christianity, and I know people are going to come back at me and be like, oh, what about this? What about that? I know there are a lot of bad Christians in the world. I'm not saying there aren't, but ideally in Christianity, you know, whoever is last will end up being first, right? You're supposed to feel some guilt about being rich. You know what I mean? You're supposed to help the poor. Even if you don't, everyone in Western society knows at their core you're supposed to be helping the poor out. You do feel a bit of shame about being obscenely wealthy. And I think that's honestly where a lot of woke stuff comes from, is that a lot of rich people in America feel shame from being rich. They don't want to give up their money, so they just come up with this woke stuff. But anyway, in India, it's the opposite, and you can see how how the country turns out because of it. So that's like the rich people have no care for the community, for the country, and so social institutions just degrade. This is one of those things where Indians will constantly be like, well, we're the most successful people in every other country. It's like, yeah, because you only care about yourself. You don't care about the community. You don't care about the overall country. Come back to me in 50, 100 years and let me see the results of all of these countries that Indians have been so successful in. Show me the results of Uganda, of Tanzania, right? Ask those people what they think about the Indians that are there. They're gonna be like they exploit us and they don't give anything back. So that's my problem with India and Indian culture. And by the way, I'm not saying that like I'm not look, I'm not I don't have any problem with Indians. Some of my best friends are Indians. And by the way, people always like laugh when people say that. I think the fact that you're willing to associate yourself with people of a certain race does prove that you're not prejudiced against that race. We had a small wedding. We had about 20 people at my wedding. Four of those 20 people were Indian, right? So clearly I don't have an actual prejudice. I just like American culture. I like Western culture. I don't like Indian culture, and that's why I don't live in India. So that's my India spiel. But anyway, um, let me see. British cultures hasn't. Okay, so George here wants to have an argument about the United Kingdom. How about this? People throw a one in the chat if you want to hear an argument about the United Kingdom. Throw a two in the chat if you don't want to. Because like I'm very happy to do an argument about the United Kingdom, but I just if people don't want to hear it, I don't want to do it. But like I'm not even saying all parts of the UK have had high migration. Like the part about the UK that makes me have no respect for you as a society is the fact that hundreds of thousands of women in the United Kingdom have been groomed, which is a horrible euphemism. And you guys have not done anything about it. Really. The guy who was responsible for covering up the grooming gangs is now the prime minister of the United Kingdom. So what are we talking about here? Like here's the thing, like people can say what they want about America, but if there were, and I can't use the actual words on TikTok, but it is, if you read the reports, if you read the government reports, I'm not talking about like Infowars or GBN News. I'm talking about the government reports about what happened in the United Kingdom. It is jarring. It is so horrendous what happened, and the fact that these men who would basically enslave, there'd be like a Pakistani man, and he would enslave 100 women and force them to be like basically force them to become Bonnie Blue. Seriously, read the reports. The fact that like people didn't show up with shotguns to kill these people who did this makes me lose any respect for you as a civilization. Because you can say whatever you want about America, but if that was happening in America, we would not wait for the criminal justice. We'll not be like, oh, this person enslaved 100 women and forced them to become Bonnie Blue for 5 years of their life, 3 years. Seriously, those are the punishments handed out. Hundreds of SA charges, 5 years. And the guy in charge of that is the prime minister. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about the UK. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. You look like you wait in the Bonnie Blue line. No, I wouldn't. You aren't reading government reports, bro. You can literally read read the J report. I am reading government reports. Read the fucking J report. If you, do you want me to read the J report right now? Honestly, I can't. It is not hundreds of thousands. It is hundreds of thousands. Dan Jones, what the fuck are you talking about? It is hundreds of thousands. This is again. This is the government reports. It is hundreds of thousands over the course of decades. I have read the government reports. Yeah. Do you not know what my niche is? Fuck with it. Go fuck yourself. I can talk about whatever the fuck I want, to be honest with you. I asked people in the chat to put a one or a two if they wanted to hear it. So I get to talk about whatever I want. So, but everyone put two. So I guess I'm done with that. Anyway, that's my problem with the United Kingdom. I like to hear about Morocco. Marrakesh. Hundreds of thousands. Yes, it's hundreds of thousands. It's not incredibly wrong. Read the J report. Ryan O'Neill, what's up, bro? Loving content. The sun has set on the UK. 100%, dude. People are leaving the United Kingdom in droves. Like you go to a country like Thailand. You go to a country like Thailand. Literally, like half the people in Thailand nowadays, half the expats are like literal families who have left the United Kingdom because they don't want to be a part of it anymore. Our illegal immigrants are better than ours, dude. Let me just say that, like, well, right now we do have a lot of like Somalian and like Middle Eastern immigrants in like Detroit and those types of areas, but historically, dude, our illegal immigrants are fucking great, man. I saw these street reporters were walking the street and be like, "What would you prefer? 1,million illegal Mexicans or 1,000 legal Indians?" And the person was just like, "A million legal Mexicans." Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna move past this. I don't want to. Dan Jones, read the fucking J report. By the way, I love that I'm falling back on this. Like, it's not hundreds of thousands, it's 97,000. As if that's that's so much better. George, respectfully, I'm not clueless about grooming gangs. How many women in the UK have been subject to grooming gangs. I'm gonna pull it up on ChatGPT, but let's see what ChatGPT. How many women in the UK? Anyway, I wanna ask. I want to answer that actually credible. Um, my wife is from Venezuela, but we met in Paraguay. Are there other cities in Colombia, Cali, Barranquilla, Bogota, having the same problems like in Medellin? Yeah, Cartagena is starting to have similar problems as in Medellin. Um, you know, I would. The thing is, like, you can go to Cartagena. I would say stay away from Medellin totally. You can go to Cartagena. They still want to have Americans there, but just know you're not going to be like meeting like a good girl. Have any Kenya recommendations? I don't. I've not been to Kenya. Um, and just don't post a TikTok, but my IG is better. Just followed you. Yeah, dude. So I have a private Instagram. I actually just created one like public Instagram, but I have a private Instagram, and like there are a lot of people who like, you know, I want to keep in touch with that I talk to on there. I don't post any of my actual shit on my TikTok because there are a lot of creepy people here who are constantly like asking me to like, you know, like let's see pictures of your wife. It's just like thoughts on Australia. Um, I haven't been to Australia. I'd like to visit Australia once just to kind of like, cross it off the list. But I think of Australia in the same category as I think of um I same way that I think of like the UK or the US. You know what I mean? Australia is just as bad. It's going through a real big affordability crisis right now. It also has a lot of Indians there, so like yeah, just avoid all the anglophone countries as of this moment. Um, where are the women that look like Adriana Lima at? In southern Brazil. I know there's Brazilian women much cooler than Colombian. Yeah, I can see that. What are your thoughts about like Sao Paulo versus Rio de Janeiro? Um, User 1225. What does the J report stand for? We were talking about the grooming gangs. I don't want to talk about the grooming gangs anymore because someone told me to stick in my lane, and like I just had like a reflexive fuck you. But they're completely right. Like people come here to hear about travel, but it was a report about the grooming gangs in the United Kingdom, and it's anyway, that's that. My thoughts about Sao Paulo versus Rio de Janeiro. My thoughts about Sao Paulo versus Rio de Janeiro are very simple. I think every single person in their life should visit Rio de Janeiro at least one time in their life. It is the most amazing city you'll ever be. It is one of the most amazing cities you'll ever go to, and I think it is the most beautiful city on planet Earth by far. Sao Paulo is like a shitty version of New York City, and there's absolutely no reason for an American to ever go there. If you want to go to Sao Paulo, just go to New York City. You're not really going to miss that much. Um, can you share any Polish history? Do you know the origins of how your family migrated to New York? Yeah, my parents moved to New York in 1983. So, um, you know, that's that's our story. They were escaping communism. So in 1981, I think Poland instituted martial law, and like me and my dad and my mom were both like protesters, so they like fled to the United States and like, you know, um, claimed asylum. Um, can I share any Polish? So more general Polish history though, is that Poland. So it's funny. I hear people talk about colonialism all the time, and like you hear Indians talk about colonialism as like, oh yeah, the English who came to your country and literally built all of the infrastructure in your country that's still being used today. Ooh, that sounds terrible. And then, like, left after you said "pretty please." What horrible colonists they are. Um, Poland was basically under colonialism from 1790 to 1990. So basically 200 years of colonial rule between the Germans, the Austrians, and the Russians. So from 1790 to 1920, they were carved up between Germany, Russia, and Austria, Hungary. And Germany and Russia had a full program in place to exterminate the idea of Polish people. So speaking Polish was illegal. All Polish holidays, everything Polish was not allowed in Poland during that time. In Russia and in Germany, in Austria, Hungary was still allowed. Um, then from 1920 to 1939, Poland got independence, but was constantly fighting wars. And then from 1939 to 1945, were occupied by the Germans, and then 1945 to 1990 were basically occupied by the Russians. So I was born in 1991, so I remember my childhood. I spent probably a total of like 2, 3 years in Poland, growing up, and it was poor, man. And then you look at the statistics, like Poland was at the time, I think it was poorer than like Brazil, poorer than like Mozambique, poorer than like all of these other countries. And right now it's richer. And the reason is because for the first time in hundreds of years, Poland has been able to like actually become like a thriving country, and now people want to move to Poland. So you know, that's that's Poland for you. That's like a brief overview. No offense, homie, but what makes you qualify in Latin American countries, not American Latin, retard. You don't seem to have girls. Well, I'm married with a Latina from Venezuela. How about you, dog? What's up? What's up with you? So right now it is what? Nah, fuck. I'm not even gonna say it. This guy knows nothing about colonialism. What are you talking about? So Callum Singh says I know nothing about colonialism, dude. Again, like if you read the history of colonialism in India, I'm a big believer, and I had a live about this. I'm going to do a debate about this. Like English colonialism in India was the best thing that ever happened to India. And like one easy way to view it is just look at population statistics in India. Like after colonialism, the population of India just skyrocketed. And the reason for that is because, you know, there was more agriculture production, there's more infrastructure, less kids dying in childbirth. The English transformed India. You look at what the Russians and the Germans did to Poland for 200 years. It was pure destruction. My grandmother, when she was 9 years old, Russian soldiers showed up at her house and shot her father in the face. And then they sent her and her family to Siberia for 5 years, where they were freezing to death for 5 years straight. She got malaria twice, typhus. That never happened in India. What are you talking about? One thing, so I have a friend who is a Singh, and he was telling me about there's like this massacre he's Punjabi in Punjab. And I looked it up, it was like 300 people died. And it was like 300 people dying is not even considered a massacre in Poland. That's just considered, in Polish history, that's considered like just a slightly bad day. Just for context, during World War II, a quarter of our population died. A quarter. One out of every four Polish people died during World War II, right? So like if you're talking about this like massacre that happened 150 years ago, it's like, oh, like this person knew my great grandfather or something. It's all lies, right? Nobody knew these people. But like in Poland, literally every single person has had at least one family member that has died during World War II due to Russian and German colonialism of Poland. So actually, I do know a lot about fucking colonialism, and you can go fuck yourself. How does that sound? What cities are Oh, do you talk to your wife in English or Spanish? I talked to her in Spanish. What cities are best for dating in Poland? I don't know. I would never wanna do that, so. Let me see. India, let me see. He says India was the richest country in the world before the British showed up. So the person who spread that lie, I forgot his name. Um, something Jackson something. Um, India was not the richest country in the world before the British showed up. If it was, the British conquered India with like 100 soldiers. You can't conquer the richest country in the world with 100 soldiers. That's not true. That is a complete lie that the Indians made up and that every single person believes. But it was completely not true. There's no records of that. And by the way, the fact that there's no records shows that it was not rich. But anyway, I'm not gonna beat this horse. Best place in Brazil to find wifey material. Go away from the large cities. So don't go to Rio de Janeiro. Don't go to Sao Paulo. Go to somewhere smaller. Goiânia, Brasilia, Porto Alegre, Salvador, Fortaleza. Tell us how it got rich, how Poland got rich. Yeah, so during the 90s and the 2000s, so Poland became part of the European Union, but what they didn't start using the euro. So because of that, their products were way cheaper than the rest of Europe's. So they basically became the breadbasket of Europe from the 90s to the 2000s. And then when they started making all that money, they started to invest heavily into like IT and programming jobs, and so now Poland is one of the big places in Europe that, like, when American companies need to outsource, software development labor, they outsource it to Poland. But Poland is now becoming one of the tech capitals of Europe as a whole. So, you know, where should I travel to find a wife? Paraguay. What to do in Paraguay? Find a wife. Britain starved India and exploited the fuck out of it. No, it didn't. It did not do that. That is that is a complete lie. Britain did not starve India. Just look at the population tables in India. The population of India rose significantly during British occupation. That's just a fact. I have multiple answers for forces to war, bro. Um, I This is the easiest way to tell that a country has not gone through any real adversity is the stuff that they complain about. First of all, every American has had multiple ancestors forced in the war. It's called a draft, right? There was a draft during the Vietnam War, there was a draft during World War II, there's a draft during World War One, there was a draft during the Spanish American War. So most pretty much every single person alive has multiple ancestors forced into a war. My question to you is, do you have multiple ancestors forced into Auschwitz? Because I do. So, you know, what are we talking about here? Anyway, I don't want to get into a conversation about India either. They did improve India. How's life in Russia? I actually don't know about life in Russia. I hear it's really bad, but I also hear from a lot of people that's really good. I try not to comment about places that I've never been to. You know what I mean? So I've never been to Russia, so it's hard for me to comment about that. Um, anyway, I don't really wanna, like, argue about Indian history either. What Eastern European countries are fun to go to? Uh, I mean, Poland is a fun place to go to. I think the Balkans are really fun. Montenegro is one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth, in my opinion. Vienna is really fun as well. Um, I don't know why you said, like, North Korea. Agadir or Marrakesh. I've never actually been to Agadir. I've heard a lot of good things. So I'm actually gonna have a episode on my YouTube about Morocco. So people can watch that, where I'm gonna be basically just talking about Morocco with a guy who knows a lot more about Morocco than I do. But I spent a month in Marrakesh. It was one of the best months of my life. The place I would recommend in Marrakesh is this place called Gualiz. It's like a 15-minute walk away from the Medina. You don't want to stay in the Medina as an American, and the reason for that is because you're just gonna get harassed by hawkers who are trying to sell you stuff. So what I recommend doing is staying like 10, 15 minutes away from the Medina. You can go visit, see all the sites, but you're not gonna be like, it's not gonna be like when you're like leaving to go to the grocery store, you're getting attacked by hawkers. Like nobody wants to live like that. Um, yeah, the Medina is awesome. I love the Medina. I just wouldn't live in the Medina, is all I'm saying. Hey, passport bro. Hey, how's it going? Top Asian country to find a wife. Hmm. I don't know, man. Maybe Vietnam. Vietnam is just my top East Asian country right now. How about Japan to visit? Yeah, Japan is an awesome country. So one of the huge benefits of Japan is that everybody thinks Japan is incredibly expensive, and it's not. Japan's actually incredibly cheap nowadays. The flight to Japan is very expensive. The hotels are very expensive, but everything else in Japan is incredibly cheap. And so if you as long as you cover those 2 things, you'll be fine on a day-to-day basis. Like, you can get some of the best sushi of your life for lunch for, like, $7. Granted, I it's been 2 years since I've been there, so maybe it's been changed dramatically, but, yeah, Japan is amazing. The beautiful thing about Japan that I love about it is that every single person in Japan treats their job the way that like a CEO or like a virtuoso musician would treat their job. You know what I mean? They put the most intense care to be able to do every single thing they do as well as they can. And it's so beautiful and amazing to be in a culture that just cares about quality to that degree. And so you're just constantly being delighted by people who are going out of their way to make every experience as amazing as possible. Versus India, where everyone's constantly scamming you and no one gives a shit about anything at all. Sorry, I have to stop shitting on India. Vietnam, gotta check it out. Your channel is great. Thanks, man. Yeah, Vietnam is my favorite country in Southeast Asia. It's incredibly pretty, it's incredibly cheap, but not just cheap, you get really good bang for your buck. Like, there are a lot of countries that are cheap, but, like, are also just really low quality. That's not Vietnam. Vietnam is really cheap and really high quality at the same time, so and also it has, like Vietnam really, at least in the major cities, has all the infrastructure that you need, which is always like a real big challenge when you're traveling, when you're going to a country that just doesn't have infrastructure. Like the Philippines, are like this. You go to the Philippines, you arrive there, and it's like, okay, nothing works. You know, if you're a digital nomad, congratulations, it'll be impossible for you to work for the next month. Enjoy. It's just not great. But Vietnam, everything works, the infrastructure is great, and it's cheap. Like, few places I recommend more than Vietnam. I've not been to El Salvador. Um, I loved India. I should write a travel book. I'm actually writing up a travel book right now. I need to like spend more time on it. The problem is that like I'm constantly traveling, so it's like you know, it's like, do I want to sit in my room and like write a book, or do I want to like go see the country that I paid thousands of dollars to go see? You know what I mean? What do you do for Hungary? Are you asking me if I'm hungry or if I want to go to Hungary? Hungary is so I've only spent a day in Budapest, but Budapest was one of my favorite cities that I've ever been to in Europe. If I were to list my cities in Europe, like Paris is one. I hate to say it, but like it is. The Paris haters are wrong. My wife forced me to go to Paris. I didn't want to go to Paris, but she was right, I was wrong. Paris is an incredibly dope city. It's also very affordable and incredible quality. Um, but Paris is number 1. Budapest might be number 2 or number 3. I'd say. It's like it's that good. What do you do for phone service? I overpay for Verizon's international plan, and I'm an idiot for doing that. So I want to date a Brazilian in Texas. I know a lot of Boston. Any tips? Yeah, go date a Brazilian in Brazil. Don't date a Brazilian in Texas. Latinas, I made a video about this. I gotta make it. I gotta make it again. Is that like Latinas in America are not Latinas? They are Ameritinas, right? They are American girls in Latina clothing, and you think you're marrying a Latina. She acts like Latina, but then all the pitfalls of an American girl. Don't do it. I'm going to Ho Chi Minh soon. Nice, dude. Ho Chi Minh is an amazing city. I've only spent a few days there, but I love it. Um, where to stay in Vietnam? Ho Chi Minh or Da Nang? Shack flow. Have you ever flown business class? I hate long flights. I actually I have kind of a funny story about that. So I was flying back from um, Thailand to America. It's my first international travel. It was 10 years ago. Or my first not my first like my first solo international travel. I traveled a lot to, like, Poland when I was a kid. But anyway, so I was flying from Bangkok um, to the United States, and oddly enough, I actually had to stop in Wuhan, and they I actually messed up my I also pay for it. Yeah, dude, it's crazy. I messed something up, I forgot what it was, but they apologized to me for it, and then they upgraded me to business class. So I had this like 14-hour flight from Wuhan to San Francisco that was going to be a total bitch. And instead, I got business class. I had this huge TV. It was dope. It was awesome. I can't justify the cost for it, but if I was rolling in dough, I would 100% do it. Um. Anyway, there's a lot of. Sorry, I'm just catching up. Where to go see snow in South America? El Caletafe in Argentina. 4 nights Buenos Aires, any Rex. Yeah, leave Buenos Aires. It's very expensive nowadays. Where am I right now? I am in Seoul, South Korea. Um, Let me see. Hire a ghostwriter for my book. I would, but like I want to be a writer, so I can't really justify doing that. 8-day vacation in South America, looking for cool hiking spots and nightlife. What city? Probably want to go to Bariloche in Argentina. That's probably your best bet. I love Paris. Yeah, dude, I hate that I love Paris, but you know, I do. Um, what do I think of Switzerland? I don't like the Swiss. The Swiss are some of the most odious people that I've encountered in my travel. They're just the worst, man. They're horrible. Switzerland itself is a gorgeous country, but it is filled with some of the worst people on planet Earth, I would say. So, just the oh my god, I hate them so much. I can't even think about, just the hatred that I have for that group of people. It just consumes me. Where should I go when I visit Vietnam? There's a city called Da Nang. It's midway between Ho Chi Minh and Saigon. I would go visit there. It's like a beach city. 4-day trip booked Medellin, have a flight passing through Cartagena November 2nd. Should I stay one night there? Yeah, why not? Bro, he reads comments on TikTok, not on YouTube. No, dude, I prioritize the YouTube comments. It's just nobody comments on the YouTube. If you have questions on YouTube, I'm prioritizing you because I'm trying to get people to follow me on YouTube. So, you know, I much prefer doing lives on YouTube than I do on TikTok. Latvia. I've never been to Latvia. Um, so that's actually a funny thing is that like it used to be the case that software engineers um it was much easier for them to travel than for sales reps, like in 2018. But nowadays, it's impossible for software engineers to just to travel. Their software companies now, or like companies that like have software engineers, are really just trying to wring as much productivity out of you as humanly possible. They're trying to replace you with AI or an Indian on an H-1B visa. So it's really hard for you to justify yourself working internationally if they could just hire an international person instead of you. You know what I mean? So it's getting very difficult. Bro, what do you do for money? Like you travel everywhere. Um, I'm a remote sales rep. One thing is that like it's actually like if you're willing to live abroad, it is way cheaper to travel everywhere than it is to just like live in one place in the United States. Just like back of the envelope math, like when I was living in LA, and this was 2019, like I was paying what $1,300 a month for rent, right? Right now, I'm paying um where to find traditional value white Latinas, bro? Want colored eyed kids. Um, Chile. Chile, they're more conservative. Maybe not in Santiago, but if you go out into the other cities, they're way more traditional. Um, how much USD do you have to earn to live comfortably in Latam and Asia as a sales rep? Minimum 4,000. You can get by with 3,000 even. Like I had some bad months with me and my wife where we were traveling where I made only like 3K and we were still able to live comfortably in Asia. Um anyway, the point is like if you think about it, like rent in LA is like $1,300 a month, right? An Airbnb for yourself, a really nice Airbnb in any major city around the world is going to be around $700 tops. A flight is about 150, $200, right? So it's like what you do is you don't fly from like Brazil to Japan to Europe to Argentina, right? What you do is you go to Latin America, you bounce around Latin America for 4 or 5 months or more, and then you go to Asia, you bounce around Asia for a while, and those tickets from like Brazil to Argentina, those are very cheap. Those are like 100, $150, right? So $700 a month for rent, 150 for a plane ticket, that's 850 in just like living expenses. And then on top of that, the food and everything else is a lot cheaper. All right. Uh, Let me see. Sorry, I'm just catching up on this. Um, what do you mean you're willing to pay for it? Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I'm just catching up on this. Where would you recommend for finding a more educated Latina or Southeast Asia? I would recommend changing your conception of what you're looking for in a woman, if I'm being completely honest. I think that and, this is one of those things where, like, guys will be like, "I don't want a feminist, yada, yada, yada," but then you buy into the feminist, thought structure when it comes to women, right? And I'm not saying you want a girl who's stupid, obviously, right? But, like, if you think of if you're looking for a traditional relationship, right? Who cares how educated she is? Her job isn't to read Proust, right? Her job is to love you, to be caring, to clean, to cook, and to really be that emotional support and like really be able to be in tune with your emotions and her emotions. What the fuck does a college degree how how does that help her with that? If anything, it hurts her in her ability to do that. So I get this question a lot. I always tell people like, don't think about it like that, right? If you're looking for a traditional woman, look for a traditional woman. Don't look for a non-traditional woman and try to change her into a traditional woman. That's not going to work. As J. Cole said, don't change her. She doesn't want to be changed. Don't change her. How do you not fall in the trap of girls using you for money or passports? Um, it's pretty simple, to be honest with you. Like, they're very transparent when they do it. The big thing is don't go to cities like, you know, Rio or Medellin or that type of stuff. Go to smaller cities. But I think the main important part of it is a mindset shift. There are a lot of guys who go to these places and lead with their money and their passport, right? And then they turn around and they complain that all the women are interested is their money and their passport, right? And it's like, well, that's what you led with. It's like imagine if the guy's like a professional juggler, right? And he starts every conversation with every girl about his professional juggling, and then he tells you, he's like, "Man, all these girls are interested in is my juggling." And you're like, "Well, yeah, that's all you talk about, right? If you don't talk about that, they won't do that, right?" And then like you just do tests to the relationship, and you just find out. I'm a remote sales rep. What do you do for income? Remote sales rep. What did you do with your stuff in the United States? I got rid of it. Why are you in Seoul? Heard it wasn't good for passport bros. Yeah, but I'm married now, so I don't really care that much about picking up girls. Um, Let me see. A lot of people. I want my Catholic Latino woman. Yeah, dude. They're great. My wife is Catholic too. She's phenomenal. Typically, you want to go to, as I've been saying, smaller cities. Well, and then another thing I gotta say, right, is that like a lot of guys would be like, I don't want a girl that will, you know, like I want a girl that's easy. I want a traditional girl, and they only date girls that put out on the first date. It's like, well, she's not traditional then. You know what I mean? Like, and that's one reason why, like, a lot of people critique me for like being Catholic and at the same time encouraging guys to spend 3 months, 6 months, a year going around the world running up the numbers. For me, like when me and my wife met, she made it very clear to me that we're not having sex until marriage, or the very least until we're engaged. And that was kind of true. But in case your mom is watching, it's very true. And so, I had to hold out for a long time because of that. But first of all, being able to spend that time going around the world laying pipe made it so much easier. I stopped caring that much about having sex. I was really just looking for a real relationship at that point. And then two, you know, um, you don't really feel like you're missing out at that point, right? And you are looking for a real girl, and only a real girl is gonna force you to like wait like that. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of questions. Um, did I have a Central Asia question? No. Is it easy to get into remote sales? It's not. I used to recommend people to this course to get people into remote sales, but then like nobody would actually pay the course, and then people would get mad at me, so I stopped doing it. How well do I speak Português? Eu falo um pouco português, mas meu problema, a minha problema é quando eu aprendi português, eu preciso. I can't do it. When I was trying to learn Portuguese, I had to switch to Spanish. I forgot most of the Portuguese, so I have to, they're very similar. So, um, great live. Thanks, dude. Is Are you guys enjoying this live, or is this like kind of boring? I feel like this would be kind of boring. But if you guys are fascinated by this, let's keep on going. I have a Formula One race in 20 minutes that I have to watch, but um, how about jeans for kids? Oh, is this like the smart thing? I don't know, man. Like, mm, it's a silly thing to try to like think about. You know what I mean? Do you live in the US? No. Have I ever been to Mega Plaza in Lima, Peru? Yes, I have been. I called the Great Escape. Why has Belo Horizonte become worse? I don't know, man. A lot of people have been telling me that. So I, when I'm relaying hearsay, I try to tell people that it's hearsay, you know, but like I can only know so much. You know what I mean? Um, Let me see. Great live. Okay, y'all like it. You got some good content. I'm going to Hako with my best friend next week, bro. Nice, dude. Hako is definitely a place. Um, Hako is definitely a place to act like a degenerate and just enjoy yourself. How much time should you wait before putting out with Latinas? Until they feel comfortable, man. Again, this is why, like, I mean, in a perfect world, you want to like, everybody's chased before marriage, but like that's not the world that we live in now, right? So, but that's why I tell people to like go hard because like if you spend enough time in Hako and Medellin and Hio, and then a lot of other places with these like, immoral women who are just using you, even the women they're not using, like even the women that are not paid for play are still using you, and you start to see through it after a while, and you get tired of it. Like once you're at that point, is the time to find a wife, and at that point, you're not going to care how much time you have to wait. You're just gonna be so happy to be like in a genuine loving relationship that you're not going to care about like oh, I can't have sex. Um, yes, more on Slavic girls I find interesting. One of those remote jobs. Yeah, I mean, um, we didn't even know it was like that. We're about to degen max. Yo, man, I hate to call you out, but I feel like I feel like you're not being 100% with me on that. That's fine, dude. That's fine, dude. I'm not gonna try to argue with you about that, but I feel like you knew that it was a degenerate location, and that's kind of why you went there. Come on now. There are a lot of other places to surf. A lot of other places in Costa Rica to surf. I'm just fucking with you. But yeah, no, it's a degenerate type of place. It's a lot of fun though. I remember when I first went. Um, you know where I can find parties in Costa Rica. So if you're going to Hako, you're just gonna go to Cocal and just find, Hako is the easiest place to like party. Don't worry about it. One thing that happens in Santa Teresa, which is my favorite city in Costa Rica, is that like every day a different bar is like the popping spot. So you have to like find what that is. Where you basically just walk down the street. There's like one main road, and like you just listen, and when you hear a place that's pumping, that's where you go, and like the entire town is there. Um, how the ladies in Hako, they're all pay for play. Yeah, is Mexico xenophobic against white people? Maybe in Mexico City, kind of similar to Medellin, but no. One of the nicest things about like about traveling around the world is that like in America, and I don't want to get into a whole political thing. We started out this live with a bunch of politics. And I don't want to talk about politics anymore, but like just broad strokes. Um, in broad strokes, right? Like in the United States, you have this constant fucking conversation about race all the time. Every TV show, every conversation is always about race. It's so much that people don't even realize it anymore. Like I've like leaving the United States, it feels like talking to people who are in a cult, and they'll say something like "Hail Xenu" in the middle of a sentence, and because you haven't heard the term "Hail Xenu" in years, it seems weird to you. But because for them, people use the words "Hail Xenu" in every sentence is just normal. Like in America, people would just be like, as a white man, as a black man, as a woman, people just throw that type of shit all the time. And outside of talking to people in the United States, I haven't heard that once in 2.5 years. And it is so fucking liberating to not have to deal with that bullshit. So anyway, the answer to the question is no, they're not xenophobic against white people. Most people aren't around the world. Most people love Americans. And you go from a place where people are constantly like, talking about how shitty white people are, blaming you for stuff that was done 150 years ago by people who aren't related to you. And even if they were, there's no blood guilt. That's not a thing. To places where people just love you for being an American. So, yeah, it's great. Um, my mother traveled the world most of her life and said Morocco are the nicest people. Yeah, Morocco has really nice people. A lot of people want to sell you a lot of stuff, though. It can be really annoying. In your opinion, between Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines, where should I spend the most time? Vietnam. Vietnam number one. Thailand number two. Vietnam number three. Vietnam number four. Thailand number five. And then like a giant ocean of shit. And then Philippines below there. I don't like Philippines. Yeah, we got so hype about it. All right. That is the official story. Vietnam is flooded. Yeah, it's a little flooded. It's a little flooded. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna argue that it's not flooded. It's a little flooded. You should add Cambodia to the list. You shouldn't. You shouldn't add Cambodia to the list. I love Cambodia. Not just because of the great time I had there. I had a great time in Cambodia. I also like literally my first video that ever got to 1 million views was about Cambodia. So I have a warm spot about Cambodia with that. But Cambodia and Laos are two countries that if you if you're not an experienced traveler, you shouldn't go there. That's just my opinion. It's not even like you won't be able to get around and that type of stuff. People get really defensive. It's just like, oh no, I'll be able to find a way. It's not even that. It's just like there's not there's not enough value there for you to go there as a first time traveler. As a first time traveler, you should be going to places like Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Rio de Janeiro, Paris. Like these are places you should go as a first time traveler because you haven't seen that much. So why not see the big cool stuff, right? For me, where I am in my travel journey, I'm in the place where I'm trying to go to places that no one's ever been. That not that no one's ever been, but I'm trying to get as far away from tourist locations as possible. But that's just where I am in my travel journey. That doesn't mean that you should do the same thing. You know what I mean? Different people are in different areas of their life when it comes to traveling. And by the way, I think as like a bigger note, somebody asked me I had a live this morning, and someone asked me like, what's the key to like making good content on YouTube, on TikTok, and I think the key to it is knowing your audience and making content that's made for your audience and that's providing value, and that's what I'm trying to do with this channel, man. Is like, look, what is good for me is not necessarily what's good for you. And a lot of times it's the opposite, right? So don't do as I do as I say. Because like me and my wife, we spent a week in Laos. It was fine. We saw the stuff, it was okay. But if knowing what I know, right? If Laos was my first trip to Asia, and knowing what was possible in Thailand and Vietnam, Japan, Indonesia, all these other countries, if somebody had recommended me to go to Laos for my first trip to Asia, I would be pissed at them. I'd be so fucking angry at them if they recommended me to go to Laos my first trip abroad because it's such a waste of a trip. If you're a digital nomad who's traveling around the world and goes to places yeah, go to Laos. But if you have like a week, if you have 2 weeks out of the year, don't go to Cambodia. Anyway, that's my little Cambodia rant. For a first time traveler, how much someone save for 2 weeks anywhere? That's a good question. So not including hotel, not including flight, most places you probably could be good. I'd say about 2,000, maybe 2,500. The reason is because like for me, like when I travel abroad, like, and I'm in Vietnam, I'm not spending a lot of money because, I'm constantly in a state of, uh by the way, somebody asked me, "What lab city you find the least pay for play girls?" There's not really a place that's not really a ranking that I can really give. I apologize for that, MNG. Um, but as a first time traveler, you're gonna wanna do the stuff. You know what I mean? Like for me, like if I go to Vietnam and I don't see this thing or that thing, it's like, well, okay, whatever. I'm always somewhere new. Who cares? But if it's your first trip and you're doing 2 weeks, you're gonna want to see everything. And so what I recommend doing is $2,500. You should probably bring that. Anyway, I'm gonna try to speed through some comments. Uh, how the Orange Pub Club? I don't know what the Orange Pub Club is. Um, VN flooded. Yeah. What do you think traveling to Cuba? I've never been to Cuba, so I don't know. I would love to go to Cuba. And I think Cuba is a place that, like, if you were a first time traveler, it would be a good spot. But do not take my opinion on it. Dominican Republic, PR, or Cuba. It's hard to go to Cuba, so I guess Puerto Rico. Do people speak English in Vietnam? Is that La Tower? Yeah, it is La Tower. In Asia, people speak English, generally speaking, because if they didn't speak English, there's no way for you to be able to get around there. So they're conscious of that. Um, where I'm in Korea right now, so I was in this incredibly touristy area yesterday, and I have a general rule that if they speak English, I don't want it. Like if you go to a restaurant, and they speak English, I'm not interested. Yesterday, I broke that rule, and it was the worst meal that I had in Korea. And then I came back here. I'm in Sindebang right now in Korea, and it's a very local area. I see some white people, but it's mainly just Koreans, and there's not a single restaurant that anyone speaks English in. I'm very happy about that. First time travel place was Medellin. It was fun, but should have gone to Asia. Yeah, that's fine. I think you're fine with Medellin is a perfectly fine first time travel location. Um, it was straight, felt like sex tourism. I mean, that is what it is. Medellin. Anyway, let me uh, going to Cabo in May with the fellas. You recommend? Nothing wrong with it. I don't really think of Cabo as like traveling though. So I am a Latino. I like women. However, the American women are meds, disagreeable, standards are delusional. Yep, that's exactly why I tell people to leave the United States and date women abroad. Um, we're staying in Cordoba, Argentina. Center of town. Are they liberal and weird like the U.S.? Yes. Argentinian women are pretty liberal. You want to go to Chile or Paraguay. Malaysia has a lot of English speaking people. It does. Um, we were in Kuala Lumpur. We had to use a translator in most places that we're in. It was even a nice area, and we had to use translators. Like we had to use the Google Camera translator on most menus, which again I love doing that because it means that all of their customers are locals. But Kuala Lumpur, let me just say this: keeping the whole, on the theme of first time, third time, fifth time travelers. If it's your third time to Asia, I highly recommend Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur is an amazing third plus time to Asia place. First time to Asia, you should go to Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, right? Or Bali, one of those places. But Kuala Lumpur is one of the most interesting locations you'll ever go to. And I made a list the other day of my 4 favorite food spots in the world, and Kuala Lumpur is there. My favorite food places to travel to are places where you can't get that food in that location anywhere else in the world. Like, that for me is a really good food travel location, and that's Kuala Lumpur. You cannot get the food in Kuala Lumpur in any other city or country in the world. It doesn't exist. Only in Kuala Lumpur. Um, can you repeat the best translator I use? I use Google Translate. It's a you download it's free. What places are still on my bucket list? That's an interesting question. So I am going to well, one place I'm crossing off my bucket list on Thursday, which is Mongolia. I've always wanted to go to Mongolia, so I'm going to Mongolia. Egypt was always on my bucket list, but I'm going there in 2 weeks. Besides that, Turkey is very high on my bucket list. Naples. I've been to Florence, Venice, Rome, a couple of other towns. I've never been to Naples. I really want to do Naples. Um, bucket list besides that. 3 countries that I've been to that I wanna go back to desperately are China, Mexico, and Japan. Like, if I had my druthers, what I would do is I would do a 3-month trip through Mexico, and then a 3-month trip through China, and then a 3-month trip through Japan. Like, that would be heaven for me. Besides that, St. Petersburg, and then I really wanna go to the Central Asian countries. I wanna go to Georgia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. Tajikistan has been high on my travel list since I was in college. Uzbekistan, obviously. Um, besides that, Oman. Oman is really high on my travel list. I'm trying to think of anywhere else. That's pretty much it. Oh, San Marino in Italy, Andorra. Those are both really high on my travel list. And then Panama. Never been to Panama. And then Cuba. That's kind of my travel list. I'm visiting Kyo in a few weeks. Any advice? Uh, I have like 100 videos about Rio de Janeiro, so just watch one of those videos. Um, where did you go to college? I'm in a spot right now figuring out if I want to finish online and travel or go in person. Um, I'm not sure, man, if what's the best idea for that. I think anybody who, is able to predict what the economy looks like in 5, 10 years is lying to you. Um, so I don't really know, to be honest. I don't want to give that type of advice. If I'm completely honest with you. I should try plov in Uzbekistan. I should. Where are you from? I'm from New York, and then I lived in California for 7 years, and then um, and then I started traveling. What tourist places have the most scammers, pickpockets that I would avoid? I've actually never been to a lot of places with like scammers and pickpockets. Is Mexico City a first time passport boat trip from San Francisco? Not really. I wouldn't do that. Um, I wouldn't do Mexico City to be honest with you. What age did I start traveling? Technically like 0 before my first birthday. When I was a kid, I spent a lot of time going to Poland, which is where my grandparents live. So I spent cumulatively like 3 or 4 years from the ages of like 0 to 12 in Poland. Then when I was in San Francisco working tech, I started traveling. I went to Thailand, Colombia, um, Costa Rica. And then I left California to become a digital nomad April 23rd, 2023. I celebrate that day every year. What if I was going to put a baby when I'm going to leave Brazil forever? Yeah, well, why not? Um, Bro, you have excellent takes. Thanks, man. I think if I could just blow myself for a little bit, the reason why I think I have excellent takes is because I think a lot of people, and this is one thing that always annoys me, a lot of people don't have their own takes. A lot of people, they just copy the takes of other people because they're afraid of like saying things that other people disagree with. So a lot of people's opinions are just the consensus about stuff. And so people aren't really interested in just hearing the consensus because you already know the consensus. So anyway, I've never had that type of thing, which, has hurt me a lot, but has benefited me in some ways. What fascinates you about China so much? Um, so I have to leave in like a few minutes because I'm going to watch Formula One. But yeah, being in East Asia, man, just changes your whole mindset about things, and you realize how shitty America is. To be honest, and I don't mean that in any more profound way than just like walking around the streets of New York and LA and San Francisco is an unpleasant experience. And going to like Seoul and going to Japan, going to Singapore, you see just how nice a city could be. And so I really want to go to China because I've heard that China is even better and I want to see it like for myself because I'm afraid I'll go to China and I'll just be like, we're cooked. We're done. China won, so that's what I think. Lou, go to Cali, Santiago, or Susium. Yeah, those are all good places. Most people are NPCs. That's true. How was Colombia 10 years ago versus now? Um, where am I at right now? I'm in Korea. Who you got winning the F1 today? Um, I got Lando Norris. I'm a Max fan. I'm a Red Bull fan, but I don't see how Max wins this championship. I think finishing 16th just destroyed it. I think it's Lando's trophy. If you would have told me that Lando was going to win back in March, I would have thrown up. But I think that he has actually deserved this championship. I'm unhappy that he's going to win it, but I think he deserves it. So, you know, give him a um you gotta fight, but Landon definitely got it. Yeah, I think Oscar is like a mental shell of himself right now, and Max just seems like he just gave up, man. Um, Let me see. What do you? Oh, 10 years ago versus now, it just wasn't as I don't want to say developed, but yeah, it wasn't really as developed. It was a little bit tougher to get around. Medellin right now is basically just like Disney World for people who want to pick up girls. So, you know, it's a lot easier to get around. Um, okay, so Byron for Bama modernize. Yeah, I think that's a good word. Um, anyway, I apologize. I'm leaving because we have 46 people on this live. By the way, can people join my YouTube? Subscribe to it. Link is in my bio. If you guys can do that, I would really appreciate it. But to answer the last question, what country do you recommend for your first country to visit? I think about this a lot. What I would recommend is Rio de Janeiro. I think Rio de Janeiro is the most beautiful city on planet Earth, and I think that everybody should see at least once. Besides Rio, I think Tokyo, Japan, will be another place I'd recommend for your first country to visit. Japan is an out of this world, incredible place to visit. Um, yeah, those would be my top two. As a fat guy, can I meet women abroad? I'm like 220. I'm pretty sure I'm bigger than you, man. and I found a wife. Japan's so far away though. Yeah, I mean, I find that funny, right? So, like, if you just think about that, like, intuitively, right? It's like, okay, so I'm going somewhere for 2 weeks. The entire travel process, right? Um, because like if you have a 6 hour flight, the entire travel process, you have to add an extra like 4 or 5 hours onto that, right? So you have a 10-hour flight basically to Colombia, right? Or to, Peru, whatever, right? Versus a 12-hour flight to Japan, which again would be 16 hours instead of, the 10 hours because you have to add 4 hours to it because you have to go to it, you have to pack, all this other stuff, right? And you're going for 2 weeks. So you're willing to go to a place that you like less and to be less of an enjoyable and memorable experience in order to save 4 hours. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me personally. But anyway, I actually feel really bad because we have like 40 people on here. I'll join again. I'll do this after the Formula One race, maybe. I have to post another video. I also have to go to sleep. But um talk to y'all later. Again, please subscribe to my YouTube, link in bio, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.